Today we're talking about grandparents. There's so much that comes along with that. And thinking about preparing kids for visits. What does that look like? How do we help kids set their own boundaries? How are we learning things for them that we didn't know how to do when we were kids? How to feel respected even when there is a power differential, and how to do it in a respectful way so that it does not damage the relationship with the parents, but has the kids leaving feeling really good. Visits with grandparents can be really tricky. There are a lot of things to navigate and negotiate. There's also expectations for your children, whether they're from themselves, from you, or from the parents. And so figuring out how to prepare them, how to know what to expect, how to set boundaries, how to hold those boundaries if the grandparents don't abide by them, and what's appropriate for them to say or not say, all while being respectful, but caring about children and not repeating the same hurts that you once had as a child from these very same people. What do you do when your parent says the wrong thing directly to your child is one part of the question, right? My favorite part of this is teaching your kids how to speak up for themselves, right? And so many mothers have been raised as people pleasers who can't do that. And what's really beautiful is that for their children, they learn how to stand up to the people that they couldn't for all those years. So you might not have been able to say, hey, don't talk to me that way. But you are able to say, you may not speak to my daughter like that. That's off limits. Or that's not your decision, right? And it doesn't have to be mean or rude or confrontational. It just needs to be firm that, like, this is not okay with us. And this could be, simple things like, you need a haircut. Not your business, Mom, right? Like, that's not for you to decide. And you want to be able to say things like, especially if the relationship isn't too rocky, right? You're not looking to pick a fight. So you could say, oh, in our house, people get to choose what they want to do with their hair. So everyone's in charge of their own haircuts. And that's it, right? You don't have to engage back and forth. And it depends how emotionally healthy the parent is. Some parents can't stop themselves, no matter how many times you ask. People have to put in different boundaries for people who can stop themselves. So for some people, that is like a cutting off from the relationship, or there are more negotiations on if you want to spend time with my children, here are the rules. If you can't follow the rules, we will not be coming as often, or we will not be coming at all. And that's big. A lot of people don't want that to happen. But when people who are very troubled, it's not so easy to stop yourself from that. And some things are just patterns, right? Like, we get stuck in patterns, they're stuck in patterns. They're stuck in patterns of the way that their grandparents spoke to them, their parents spoke to them. And so sometimes they don't even know that it's abnormal or hurtful. Like, you better get over here and give me a hug. It's like, oh, actually, it's not how people do it anymore. Kids get to choose if they feel comfortable giving you a hug. And that isn't disrespectful. But I am teaching my child that they matter, and if they're uncomfortable, they don't have to do that. The things that felt harmful to you as a child, those things have not left your parents' mouths, right? They're still their same thoughts, they're still their same actions. So when your kids are there, some of those same things are repeated because people don't really change. And so there's a level of protection that's required. And, one that's been coming up a lot lately in some of my work is mothers who talk about bodies, talk about food, whether it's forcing kids to finish what's on their plate, or telling people that they're eating too much or eating the wrong thing, or that goes right to your hips, or all these things, right? And now mothers in particular do not want those messages given to their daughters. They don't want them to have to struggle in the same way. They don't want them to have to take in these negative messages about themselves, about food. Obviously people are thinking very differently about food now, food as fuel, not food as good or bad, or that you should or shouldn't have, or what's the right amount. And giving that back to the kids of this is your body. You get to decide. Your body tells you when you've had enough. Some days you're hungrier than others. Like, that's okay. But when you go to visit grandparents, a lot of times there are a lot of comments. Oh, why are you eating that? Oh, I think you had too many of those. Or some people say, like, that's disgusting, right? Like, the level of maturity or evolution of a parent, right, depends. It's a really big range. So some people say offensive things, but some people say, like, really the wrong thing. And so parents have to jump in and teach their kids how to stop people who say things like that to them, even if it's their grandparents. Sometimes you have to remember, like, I am not just their child anymore. I am not a child anymore. And this child needs me to, like, find something deep in my soul and say something that I couldn't do before. I couldn't say to my parent, you know, I don't like this, stop, this isn't appropriate, I don't want you to. Like, kids didn't have a lot to say for generations, right? And so you want your child to have a say. You respect them as a whole person, and you're teaching your parents how to respect them, even if they don't understand it yet. And so finding it within yourself, it's just so much easier to do on their behalf. Like, I'm not going to let you go through this. I've been through this. This is not what I want for you. And I'm going to stop them. And I wish someone had stopped them for me, you know, but I'm going to stop them for you. So what do you do on the way to your grandparents' house, right? This is a great opportunity to, like, set the stage for your kids. If you have a parent that always says the wrong thing, expect your parent is going to say the wrong thing. So people get really stuck in, like, this time it's going to be different. This time they're going to be kind. This time they're not going to say anything rude. And then you're disappointed and you're hurt. So go into it expecting it's most likely they will be who they always are and say the wrong thing to me or my child. So how do you help your child manage that? One is, like, really being honest about it. Sometimes grandma says the wrong thing, and sometimes it's kind of hurtful. You can let her know, I don't like when you say that to me, or I think my outfit looks just fine, or my hair is just the way that I want it. Just because someone's older than you doesn't mean what they say is true. So you know things for yourself. It's important for kids to know, like, if grandma gets upset because you said that, that is her feeling to manage. She is a grown-up. Her job is to manage her own feelings, just like your job is to manage your own feelings. She is the adult. You are not responsible for that. Because that's what happens, right? It's like, well, I'm not going to say anything because this person's going to be mad at me or upset with me. And, like, we want kids, especially girls, to learn this young. Like, just because someone doesn't like what you have to say or has a feeling about it doesn't mean you don't say it. You say it for you. They have to handle their own response.